Okay. Hey, this is the Fight Nerd here now at the World Series of Fighting headquarters in Manhattan. Great location, great view as you guys can see. And I'm here now with the CEO, Carlos Silva, and the COO, Mike Mersh. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
This is a pretty big occasion here. You guys have now officially moved to New York City with the offices. Tell us what prompted the move and how long has this been in the process of happening?
Well, you know, we've got a couple of board members that work out of New York, and we opened this office and joined. We've got a lot of sales and marketing going on here in New York City. So we did about 6 months ago. Happy to be here. It gives us a nice home base. I actually live on the East Coast, and then I'm out in Vegas every week, but I often am in New York for sales and marketing meetings, so it creates a nice little triangle between Washington, New York, and Las Vegas.
You know, obviously having a footprint in New York now that MMA has finally become legalized here is an important step to us. We felt that was coming, and that's why we opened up the office here. We're still having our presence in Las Vegas as well, though, and have kind of our operations team centered there. But look, it's a national type of company. We're busy on both coasts and everywhere in between, and so it just made sense to have a presence here.
Yeah, it also with all the sales meetings that are going on here in the city, you know, pretty much every agency is here, and it's nice to be able to have a place in between those meetings to get work done, because we're here often meeting with sponsors and their agencies.
Now, Mike, as you alluded to, you were here in New York, and the bill just passed recently. So was this something that you guys have been planning for a while because of that happening? Was this something you were going to hope happen, or regardless, would you guys have still moved here if the bill didn't get legalized this year?
We would have still moved here regardless. Look, at the end of the day, whether it's legalized here or not, I think as came up, and I'm sure you're familiar with all the stuff around the bill, as I got pointed out during that, MMA is here in New York, whether one way or the other. And so whether the only thing MMA didn't have for a long, long time was live MMA professional fights. And so, look, the business of MMA was already here. The television product was already here. And so, you know, as we pointed out, we opened up with this office 6 months ago, long in advance of that passing. So
yeah, and you know, Mike has been on our radar and been a friend of World Series of Fighting for, you know, well over a year, and it's great that he joined the team about a month ago. We've had a relationship with the MMA World Expo that's here usually in December at the Javits Center. We're now in the process of rolling that into World Series of Fighting as well. And you know, Mike is really instrumental over the last 6, 7, 8 years under the guise of UFC that did so much work to bring to get MMA legalized here in New York. So it's great to have him on the team, and it's great that the UFC did all that hard work for the last 8 years that really we can benefit from now.
Now here in Manhattan, you guys are in the backyard of Spike TV, which is also, of course, the home of Bellator MMA, Bellator Kickboxing. Now, obviously, UFC top tier, they're pretty much the top dog right now, no matter what. But here, basically, you're in Bellator's turf. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, not really. I mean, look, Viacom's a hugely powerful company. I've worked with them for years, when I was at AOL Time Warner and at NBC, and working with some of the Viacom properties over the years, in relationships. So look, they do a great job. Spike has had fighting on for a long time with UFC and Bellator, and look, we've got a great partner at NBC, and NBC Sports is here, both in Manhattan and in Stamford, and they help us. I've been a long-standing partner of NBC Sports, and MMA is important to them along with all the great sports they've got. So, look, I mean, it's New York, so everyone's in New York, and you have to be in New York if you want to be a player, and that's why we're here.
Now, with Bellator, they just recently have unleashed their kickboxing events on the world. I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out the event or not, but regardless, are there any plans for World Series of Fighting to branch out into other realms of combat sports?
Look, any plans?
No, I don't think we have any plans. Look, our focus has always been and will continue to be on putting on high-quality professional mixed martial arts bouts. That's where we're at. That's where our fighters are at. And we wish the best of luck to Scott and to Bellator, and we hope that goes well for them. I think any success they have in that field is good for all of combat sports.
Yeah, and John's a good friend of mine over at Glory, and they do great fights as well. And if there's ever a chance to work with them on a co-promotion, we talk to them all the time. I've known John back from the boxing days, and look, we're all in fighting sports, but for World Series of Fighting, we're concentrating on MMA. With our live shows on NBC Sports Network and NBC, and that's really where we stand for the moment.
Now, I think the number one question that all the viewers want to know is, when are you guys coming officially to New York? Your next event is going to be in Connecticut, Uncasville, Connecticut, and UFC has already announced their first event in November. Do you guys have any plans for New York yet?
The simple answer is yes. That's why we're here. it's why we've invited some press over here, and having Bloody Elbow here, we're really happy that you guys showed up and came by to have spend a little time with us. And I think end of the year and first quarter of next year, we're in the process of putting that together. Mike's leading that effort for World Series of Fighting. I think you'll see some announcements soon, but that's also why we're in New York. Other than just sales and marketing, is to work with all the great venues to understand when our first event will be.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, obviously for the rest of the planning of 2016, we're pretty far along with kind of completing our schedule for the rest of this year. We may have one date that might work as a potential placeholder to bring an event here toward the end of the year in the fourth quarter of this year. But whether it's the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of 2017, we're definitely looking forward to bringing an event here. We will be bringing an event here, and it's just a matter of finding the right dates and timing of it all.
Now, can you tell us if you guys have talked to any of the venues yet in the area, and do you have any plans to bring the events upstate at all?
We have talked to the several venues actually here in the state. We have a good relationship with the guys at Madison Square Garden, but that doesn't mean that we're certainly not also willing to and are talking to places like Barclays Center. And to answer your question about upstate, I've been on the phone this past week with actually several different venues in upstate. And I think, having worked on the MMA bill in Albany, and a lot of the, sort of traveled across the northern part of the state as sort of educating people about that bill, getting people behind, the voting for that bill. We've been to the Syracuses of the world. We've been to the Uticas of the world. We've been to the Rochesters and the Buffaloes. And I can tell you there's passion for the sport up there as well. There's obviously a lot of great venues up there, which is great. And so, yes, I think, certainly there's an appetite for that, and certainly something we're looking at from a World Series of Fighting standpoint to bring events up to the northern part of the state.
Yeah, there's New York City, but New York's a big state, so I think there's opportunities in all those towns. There's a lot of fighters that are local too that we bring along and bring into World Series of Fighting. So we're excited to look at all of them. Mike's leading that effort for us.
Something that World Series of Fighting has been very good at their events is bringing in guys from lesser-known gyms coming in to fight, getting on big cards. Being here in New York again, have you guys started scouting any potential talent or any gyms that you've set up relationships with?
Again, simple answer is yes. We've got a couple of our champions here today. Guys like David Branch that are local, and guys like Marlon Marias that are down in Jersey that are local. But yeah, we're talking to all of them, and between Ray and Michael, they're talking to some of the local guys that have got some great fighters, and we think it's important to bring them on both on our undercard and even give them a chance to be on the NBC show as well.
All right, now just a few questions also about Rousimar Palhares, who is currently not fighting. My question is, has the plan been to keep Rousimar from fighting but essentially locked into a contract so he can't go anywhere else? Do you have any comments to that?
Well, no. There's certainly no intention to, well, let me say it this way. We certainly have every desire and intention to enforce our contractual rights. But to the extent that there are ongoing negotiations with Rousimar Palhares and his management team, I have been talking with them, and we're hoping to come to an amicable relationship on that. But the most important thing I think to keep in mind is really what is in the best interest of Rousimar Palhares. His decision to possibly fight somewhere else in violation of the suspension that he's under right now really could mean the end of his career fighting in any sort of a regulated environment anywhere, period. And so he's really sort of, if he decides to do that, he's going after a short-term gain for possibly having a lifetime ban. And again, I think that would be unfortunate because I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a very talented fighter at a minimum. And some of the decisions, whether you agree with some of the decisions that he made or not, that's an individual decision. But look, at the end of the day, what I don't want to see happen is having a short-term decision by Rousimar sort of have a negative impact on himself and really on the sport.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. We support the commission's decision, and it's not that World Series of Fighting has put Rousimar on the bench. The commission has. He's under suspension, and we're just abiding by what that commission's doing. We'd love to have, we'd love to talk to Rousimar. We'd love for him to get with his people, to get well, and to be a great fighter in World Series of Fighting. But right now, he's got to deal with his suspension. And if we can help, and Mike can help in dealing with that by being an intermediary with the promotion that he's under contract, we'll do that, and we already are doing that.
Now, if he decides he does want to fight somewhere, can you guys stop him, and would you try to stop him?
Well, again, it's one of those things where I believe in communication on these things, right? So, obviously, if and when that decides to happen, it would be my My understanding, and I've known his manager for a very long time, probably going on a decade. I would anticipate and expect that he would call me and we would talk about that in advance. But again, we believe that we have a contract with Rousimar, and it's not that we're not willing to work with them on it, but we intend to enforce our contractual rights.